Welcome to Bring Out Your Badass Self, a movement to break your negative thoughts and habits and instead focus on building each other up and encouraging fearless authenticity.
Each episode, we will get vulnerable and share experiences alongside our guests and audience. Come rediscover your inner badass self.
Good morning, fellow badasses. Welcome to 2026.
Yes.
And so please let me know that you are here. Say hello and let me know if you have seen the plan for this year and give me a little bit of your thoughts. What do you think about what we're about to cover? This year, you will see some familiar faces and some new ones. And today, consider the bar raised. We have Brent Darnell, our resident emotional intelligence leader, is back. So welcome, Brent.
It's great to be here. I always look forward to these.
I love it. And you know, the last time you were on, I have to say I loved your inquisitive and curious nature. And I'm used to asking all of the questions, and I love that it truly felt like a co-host last time. So thank you for that.
Yes.
Well, since you have been here before, maybe this time around you could get us up to speed on what do you have going on right now?
Well, I'm busy telling people about, I have a lot of self-directed courses online now. So I'm telling people about that. Check out my website and you can see what's there that's
What's
offered.
that URL?
It's brentdarnell.com.
Perfect.
Two L's in Darnell. And then I've been speaking a lot lately on human connection at various conferences, CMAA, DBIA. There's in Portland, February 23rd. It's the Construction Mental Health and Wellbeing Conference, and I'm doing a half-day pre-conference session on human connection and how it ties into all the things that we're struggling with, like relationships and communication and mental health and well-being and teens and diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging. All of those are foundationally are about human connection. So that's what I've been focusing on the past probably couple of years.
I love it. I mean, you're fitting in well to this year's plan of awakening the power within us. And part of that is a part of connecting with not only ourselves, but connecting with each other. So I love that you're focusing on that and helping people in the AEC industry just to be able to really connect. Because that's what we just need more of is understanding and connection. And it's going to dive well into today's topic of that us versus them theory.
Yes.
So go ahead.
Yeah, just shout out to Carrie. Hi, Carrie. We've known each other for quite a while. So I just wanted to shout out to her. I saw her post there in the stream. So
she said aloha. Well, let's say hello to a couple of people that have joined us. And if you guys haven't noticed, I added a new feature, which is and that's why I moved us over a little bit to be able to show the people that are coming and the comments that are coming up. And so we have J-Ro coming in. She says, good morning. Just on for a second to say hello and send love. I'll have to listen later. Have a great show. So thanks for joining us. And we will catch you on the replay. And then we have a Carmen joining us from YouTube. She says, good morning and happy Friday to my favorite beautiful badass, sending you the biggest hug. Love you, sister. Happy New Year. So great to see you, Carmen. And thanks for always getting up so early in California to join us. We have Miss Kim. Miss Kim messaged me. She saw the agenda for this year and she was like, "Oh, I'm so excited." And so I'm so glad that you're here today. She says, "Good morning and happy Friday to two amazing badasses." And so you're just a part of the crew now, Brent. You know, you're one of the badasses.
It's great to be listed in that. I'm very humbled by that. That's awesome.
I love it. And Abbas is here. He says, hi, good morning. I had a really good conversation with him just through IMs. And it's funny, I gain a lot of insight from people from a virtual perspective. Like I'll have like full on conversations sometimes just through IM with people, especially people that are abroad. And I don't know, I feel like almost everybody's virtual these days for the most part. And so I had just a very lovely conversation with him to better understand more about, some of the culture and the differences, even about calendars, for example. We were talking about the differences of calendars that he has versus what the US has. So I was learning a lot from him. So thank you for that. Lisa says, happy Friday, badasses. All the best for 2026. So thank you so much, Lisa, for joining us and, continuing to support us. And I love what it is that you're continuing to do to help people with, especially women on menopause. He posted a great post about how we talk about the New Year's. And we were in sync because she was talking about the pause and menopause. And sometimes we are on the go, go, go. And sometimes we really need to pause instead of having yet another goal for ourselves in 2026. And I had posted that for this year, I was going to remain, my goal for 2026 was to focus on being present and being mindful. Brent, what are your thoughts on, do you have goals for this year, or what are your thoughts on that?
I've never done New Year's resolutions, but I usually have a word of the year. My word this year is peace. So peace within, peace without, peace connecting with others, and
I
making
love it.
sure you're a peacemaker and not an exacerbator of division. And so, and to me, that approach to peace in all things, I think it gets to exactly what you're doing with being fully present, because you have to be grounded and settled and peaceful to be able to connect with that person across from you.
Yeah, it really is the same thing. The pause, the mindfulness, being present. I know Jennifer Lacey had silence
Yeah.
as her word, and it's like all of us are wanting peace in our lives, and also for me, it's also connection and less division and those types of things. So it's all of those things that we're going to be talking about today on how we can maybe add some calm to our life as well.
Yes, I'm all for it, and promote it and talk about it. And I'm a certified yoga instructor and have been for quite a while. And I teach a lot of mindfulness and meditation and breathing, and that all those things that bring us down to that state.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to say another hello to Carrie because I didn't officially get to say hello to her. So thank you, Carrie, for joining us. And then lastly, so far, coming up is Katie Manning. So for those that don't know, Lindsay, who was our marketing manager at Full Sail Partners, has actually left us, but she is actually mentoring Katie, and Katie is our new marketing manager. And so I'm excited to have her on, and she's joining us for the first time. So thank you so much for joining us. She says excited to listen. And then I also just want to wish Lindsay well as she is moving on to her next endeavor. She is starting a company or working with 3 other people. So she's going to enjoy the life of being a partner and learning how to work with 3 other individuals as she's starting a construction company, or sort of taking over, I should say, a construction company. And then Katie, we're so excited to have you and just make the marketing your own. And so I know she had said she has some big shoes to fill, but I think Katie has also some skills that are really going to help the company with her background as well. And she's just really going to make it her own. So thank you so much also for joining us today. Lisa also adds, love that Brent, surrounding yourself with people who bring that peace is also important.
Absolutely. It's a cultivation process, and getting rid of the things that aren't peaceful in your life and the people that aren't peaceful in your life. And if you have to be with those people, Like if it's a work thing or a family thing, then it's about trying to influence that piece, I think. And that's hard sometimes.
Yeah. Well, I am excited about this year's plan. And so, for those that didn't see, we're going to be focusing on awakening the power within. And Boy Bass is going to be having a little bit of a different schedule this year. So, this is how we'll roll. Week 1 and 2 each month, I'm going to look to bring on a guest co host that we're going to dive into topics designed to help guide your deeper self into self-awareness and lasting empowerment. And really, it's going to be focusing on and dedicating an entire year to bringing buried truths into light. That's a part of, especially this first quarter, shattering the self-deceptions that we sometimes cling to, and then really empowering our community to grow, question, and belong. So that word's coming up again, Brent, belong. And
Yeah.
I have divided the year by quarter. So Q1 is going to focus on awareness of how societal messages keep us trapped in fear, shame, and division. And then Q2, we're going to build upon that, and we're going to focus on skills and self-efficacy to reframe and rewire our mindset that gives us the tools needed to believe in ourselves. And then Q3, we're going to put our new skills to work. We're going to focus on boosting our confidence and strengthening our bonds. And Q4, we're going to focus on that peace and resilience and how we can cultivate inner calm and the bounce back ability to learn from our setbacks. So let's dive in today to today's topic to start our year-long journey on deconstructing us versus them narratives. So Brent, you really joined me for a doozy today. Let me just say that. So I'm curious, why did you pick this one to join me? When you looked at, I sent some different types of topics. What intrigued you about today's topic?
Well, number one, it's been my focus for a couple of years of that whole human connection component and resolving divisions and resolving conflict and things like that. But number two, I think it's far reaching. The ripples go way out, because if we can figure out how to do that with ourselves and our immediate folks, maybe we can figure out a way to expand that to societal level where we're not, I mean, it's gotten so divisive and so I mean, it almost feels like some type of play that we're in. It's just so, it's surreal in a
Mm-hmm.
way, how that division is playing itself out mostly on social media and news and things like that. But
Yeah.
I think it's been coming for a while. I think the pandemic sort of exacerbated that whole isolation, reliance on social media and virtual interactions. And then I don't think we've ever really recovered from that. And I think that the answer to all of these issues is our ability to connect as humans and make an effort to truly connect with each other. And we're not doing that because of, well, fear comes into play. We talked about that a little bit, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you have that fear going, you tend to lose your compassion and lose your empathy. And the foundation for that connection is always empathy and compassion, and that being able to connect and that being fully present, like you're doing for the year.
Yeah.
And fear just drives that away. So we have to figure out what connects us as humans, and let's do more of that stuff.
Yeah. And it's really figuring out to me, the reason I think you're perfect for this topic is it does really require some emotional intelligence
Yeah.
to step away from our ego, to step away from the fear, or maybe analyze, well, why was I triggered, or what is it that I'm fearful of? Because keep in mind, a lot of times people think fear is, they equate it to needing to run away or things like that. But sometimes fear is really about, what if you are wrong? What if, like a lot of people, they will focus on like, oh, well, if I'm wrong about this, then what else might I be wrong about? Or
Right.
or I'm losing my sense of belonging because I'm connected to this group, and therefore I fear that I'm not going to be connected to maybe a group that, we've talked about this before on this show, but those labels and our team, for example, who are our teams, that we equate ourselves with, and sometimes pulling yourself away from those labels and who you consider a part of your group is being able to step back and analyze, does this really align with my overall values? Does this
Right.
really align with, being ultimately kind to others and all kinds of things in life as well? So I want to start us off thinking about some things. So think about the labels and the stories about whoever is them in your life.
Mhm.
Where do those narratives come from, and whose voice is missing? And I would love the audience to answer this as well. But I want
Yes.
us to sort of talk a little bit about, like, who is them in our lives, Brett?
It's so interesting that yeah, at its most fundamental level, there is no us and them.
Mm,
From a reality standpoint, we're all so connected as humans. Whether we feel that connection or not, that's another thing. But we are connected in such a profound way, and if we all realize that, I think a lot of these issues would be diminished, or go away completely. In South Africa, they have a philosophy called Ubuntu, and when they greet each other, they say, I see you is the first part of the
mm,
greeting. I see you. And the response is, I am here, which is really significant because it's like you don't come into existence until somebody acknowledges that they see you and that you're
mm,
there and that you're part of this. And so that sense of being connected after apartheid, the black population could have probably slaughtered the white population, but they didn't because of this Ubuntu philosophy.
mm.
Because if you harm somebody else, you're harming yourself. That's how connected they feel.
Yeah.
And we've lost that sense of connection. And you're right, the fear comes into play, and it plays into really deep stuff like values, things that we value. And the hardest part is to try to understand, or to fully understand, when somebody, like, you see a post online and you think, well, that's just insane. That
Mhm,
person's an idiot. They're right wing, or they're left wing, or they're
mm,
woke, or they're white nationalists, or whatever those, far right, far left kind of things are. But what if you really tried to understand their point of view? And see,
mm.
that's really hard because it may conflict with your values,
Yeah.
and it may conflict with some really deep stuff. And that's the problem, I think, with overcoming this, is it's deep stuff. And
Mm,
when you challenge somebody's values, you're challenging who they are, and you're challenging everything about them. And so
yeah.
they feel attacked, and they fight back, and it's this escalation of violence where you yell at them and they yell louder, and then they shove you and you shove them, and they hit you and you hit them, and they get a gun and you get a cannon, and it just escalates into this violence, right?
Yeah.
In order to de-escalate that violence, you have to try to understand who they are and where they're coming from. And that is so hard because it seems so weird. Like, if you're on the far right or far left and you're trying to understand a far right or far left, the opposite of you,
Yeah.
man, that's hard to do. It takes really good emotional intelligence and compassion and empathy.
It does. And, when I started to think about this particular topic, I started to think about, like, all the things that we have in life, that we have the different dynamics. So you mentioned, like, right and left, but even as I started to evaluate just business, like, we have competition, like it's us against, someone else. And
Right.
one of the philosophies that I have taken on, like, we have sort of they're considered competitors in some ways, other partners that are in our ecosystem. But one of the things that I purposely did was to reach out to each of them and say, look, like, if we want to continue to elevate the product and elevate the industry, we need to be on the same page. We need to actually be working together. And this is one of the things I've also been working with Deltec on is, how we can not see each other as adversaries in the process, and how can we actually work together. And I remember even working whenever I had an employee that left and he went to a competitor. Now he's back. But even at that time, I spent time with him, even talking to him while he was in that position, because I was like, you know what, if I'm able to help influence the overall industry, even if it's another product, then, I can help, us do things that are more ethical, things that are, more in alignment with the things that people are really wanting and how they're wanting us to treat them from a software and technology perspective.
Yeah, I'm the first to promote people that do what I do on LinkedIn. If they have a great post, I repost or I comment, or I try to promote everybody, because I got that abundance mentality, but also the need is great
Mm-hmm.
in the industry for stuff that I do. Especially the need
Yeah.
is great, and the more people doing it, I just say, please do more, expand your base. How can I help you? Because it's going to help everybody. It's sort of like when you open up a theater across from another theater, both theaters do better, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because it has this abundance mentality of people. Wow, there's lots of stuff here. Let's go check it out. So
Ooh,
it just increases the whole impact of what you're trying to achieve.
yeah, I
So
love that. We have some great comments coming in. Let me
I
see.
see that.
Yeah, so Heather said, good morning, badasses. Made it for a few minutes to start the new year off right. Thank you for joining us, Heather. She said also she loves the concept. Is it Ubuntu?
Ubuntu. Yeah.
Ubuntu. So I love that. I love, I mean, I feel like, is there something we can say here in the US that's, very similar in nature? Maybe we just say, I see you, um,
Yeah,
as a greeting moving forward.
I like that. I talk a lot about Ubuntu in courses that I've got on relationships and communication, and it's about really having that compassion to try to understand the other person. And I mean, Covey said it, first seek first to understand and then to be understood.
Hmm.
And we usually do the opposite, and we're trying to like promote ourselves, or promote our ideas, or try to prove that we're right, or that our concept is the best concept. So
I agree. It's still something I'm struggling with. Even myself, but I think that it's that first step of awareness
yeah,
that's required in order to then go, oh, well, how can I be different? How can I do
right.
this differently? And so I think that it takes courage to admit, like, oh, I'm guilty of this. But
It's
then,
so hard.
it's then instilling what type of skill sets do I need to learn, and then how do I now make this a part of my practice?
Yeah. And then how do you do it when like, they always give the example is, do you punch Nazis? And Carrie mentioned anybody that's a bully is a them.
Mm,
But if we could get to the point where you're curious about that bully, what
mm,
caused that bully to be that way?
yeah,
What's their past look like? Are they hurting? Are they damaged? Do they need compassion?
yeah.
And that's when it gets really hard. And that's when my wife says, let Jesus do that. I can't do that. And I tell her, it's hard for me too, but that's my goal. And I don't,
Mm,
I don't succeed, but I want to really try to understand that other person and fully understand it. And sometimes there's things that you don't know about that person that causes that behavior. And if you can figure that out and connect in that way, those things become a lot less important. And also they shift and change. If they feel like you're really truly understanding them and connecting with them,
ah.
they will have a shift. And that's really miraculous when that happens.
So two thoughts on that. First, Myra says I'm guilty. So thank you, Myra, for stepping up. And maybe, we can together figure out a better way to approach some of these things. But two, I want to acknowledge what it is you just said. One of the things that I have have recognized and have been starting to practice is I can't control or change other people. Like I already knew that. However, what I have found is if I start to show up differently in situations and learn how to maybe say things differently, and I'll give you an example that I recently ran into is I started thinking about the word can you do something versus will you do something? And just that simple change of a word allows you to be able to think about it. So can you do something might sound accusatory, like, I don't know, can you?
Yeah.
And that was something I always said. And it was pointed out to me that maybe try will you? Like it's a yes or no. Like I can, I'm willing to, or I'm unwilling to. Because that allows you to understand, are we connecting? Is this something you will help me with? Because I'm asking, will you, help me to accomplish whatever it is? And that sort of is building a little bit more of the bridge of I need help. Will you help me? Type of a
Right. Yeah, I think that language is so powerful, and just those little simple things can really. You can use language to connect, or you can use language to sort of lay there, or even be divisive. And
Mhm.
that's a great way to connect. Is will you? Because you, like you said, you're being vulnerable. You're maybe asking for their help, um, and that vulnerability creates connection. So.
Yeah.
And that and here's the weird thing about all of this is we crave connection as human
Mhm.
beings. We have to have it to survive. There's that study about the orphans in Romania or wherever, and the ones that survived were the ones that they touched on the way out when they turned the lights out at night.
Mm.
So that physical touch, that physical connection, and that sense of belonging, and that sense of having a tribe and having people that understand you and accept you, and you can show up. That's not just a nice to have, and oh, that's a cultural thing. I think it gets into survival. I think
Mhm.
isolation can literally kill you. And I mean, they're doing a lot of studies at Stanford about what how do you lead long, healthy lives, and one of the biggest components is human connection.
Yeah.
How often do you connect? What's your social networks like? What's your family networks like? And
Yeah.
how often do you connect with other human beings? It's a
Yeah.
big piece of our health and well-being and our longevity. So
Yeah.
um,
I love that.
that's all research based, right? That's all. It's that's not just a pie in the sky or some woo-woo kind of concept. This is based on research. So
Yeah. Heather says, I've learned so much in my life by purposely listening to people who believe differently than me. While they won't change my mind or vice versa, I gain a better understanding of why they believe what they do. We sometimes can't imagine what caused people to believe what they do. And when you take time to understand, you can see how they came to the conclusion that they did. And I
hmm,
think, one of the things that I want to make sure that we're sort of talking about today is, maybe giving a little bit more of an actual example. And I know that I had asked you at the beginning whether you were open to a little bit more of a controversial topic today. And we have within the United States right now something that is really causing division online. And it's no different than the previous day before the incident happened. I just continue to see this escalation of division. One group, demonizes one side, and then the other side demonizes the other side. And
right.
recently, with the division that has been brought about with Renee Nicole Good, who was shot by an ICE law enforcement. I wanted us to maybe take a little bit of a different perspective instead of, focusing on like who was right and who was wrong. I want us to take this as an opportunity to evaluate the different perspectives, because what we talked about or what you just mentioned is that connection and what was just I just read from Heather is that we have to take time to understand each other's perspectives. So I sit down and was like, okay, let me look at this from, the other side. Whenever I saw the video, I immediately was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that they shot this person. So I immediately was drawn to a particular side. When we are immediately drawn to a particular side, I think what's important is to say, okay, let me look at it from the other perspective. What are the things that could be, valid, and and how does that other side feel about what is going on? So I did that, and I did a little research, and I was like, okay, one of the things that I saw was that Officer Jonathan Ross was in an incident in June 2025. And I don't know if everybody is aware of this yet, but he was drugged 300 feet as he was trying to apprehend a 40-year-old Guatemalan citizen. That person was also a convicted sex offender and also in the U.S. illegally, or I should say, they were trying to move him out of the United States. He was trying to arrest him, and he ended up sustaining really substantial injury. He was drugged from in the car from that person 300 feet. So I started to think about that, and even though law enforcement are supposed to take each incident and evaluate each situation, and not let that impact, the current situation from the past incidents. I thought, if you really haven't done work on past trauma, that really can still impact you, and especially in a split-second decision. So I started to look at it from his perspective of what just happened in June. Someone else is now coming at me, potentially in a car. Do I feel some type of fear that then makes me want to immediately react a particular way? So I felt like it was important to look at it from the other perspective. Where I think that it's also important is to look at it now from this other perspective. This woman was waving the truck around. She wasn't threatening anybody. She was blocking the traffic. But the way law enforcement approached her SUV, I was thinking about what it is that I might be thinking. I can tell you from my perspective, watching how U.S. citizens have been detained and hauled off with no need for cause, and stating they are, they've been put in inhumane conditions for a period of time. I see people that have fought for this country that are being deported. I see clergymen that are protesting peacefully and getting assaulted. So my mindset might have been, in her situation, I got to get out of here. I'm scared for my safety. And what I think we're not talking about is, really what our values are. And I ask myself, what do we want as a country? And I think back to this last couple of weeks. I was watching the Vulnerable Monks, and I got to go see them in Snellville, and they really inspired me related to, peace. So I started to think, how do we approach this in a way of acknowledging the other side while also, talking about what it is we really want from a country, perspective, and how do we get us from moving from, you're wrong and immediately jumping on things to, with one side coming out immediately saying you're a domestic, terrorist. And then we have other leaders that are now, immediately going to the extremes as well and simply saying, fuck ICE, get out of here. And, how does that actually help us as citizens? And that's what I want us to sort of take a little bit of time to examine, is if we continue to go to extremes and immediately jump on the bandwagon, that nuance and perspective, are they a thing anymore? Do we realize that we're also fueling the division?
Yes. Wow. That's a lot.
It is.
And the thing that popped into my head was the whole sort of love versus fear. and both of their reactions,
Mm.
um, the woman driving and the officer,
Yep.
the reaction that caused this whole thing to unfold was fear.
Both of them.
Yeah, both were fear-based reactions. So the question is, and then we're getting into all kinds of weird stuff here, but what caused that fear?
Mm-hmm.
And can media and social media come into play on stoking fear?
Absolutely.
Because that's what keeps people watching when they're afraid and when they see really volatile, horrible stuff, they keep tuning in. And so how do you address that?
Mm-hmm.
Because people want to stay informed, but then the fear drives further fear. Keep watching, and then we talked earlier about the algorithms will keep you seeing the same stuff. You click on the horrible stuff, and you see more horrible stuff. So that just becomes this endless loop of a downward spiral to hell and fear, and the only thing that can reverse that is love and
Mm-hmm.
compassion and de-escalation. And when you're in that life or death situation, you can't ferret that stuff out. That guy probably thought he was going to die
Mm-hmm.
and reacted because of that. She thought she was going to die and reacted because of that. So when you're
Yeah.
in that mode, when you're in that fight, flight, survival mode, you can't discern.
Yeah.
So I think we have to look at what is the root cause of the fight flight mode. And I think social media and media have a big part to play in
I agree. I am going to pull up Carrie's comment. She said,
that.
she said, "Damn, Sarah, I need a drink after that question."
This is vodka, actually. So yeah, I feel you. I'm right with you.
And so, but I think in order for us to really get to the calm, we have to acknowledge what it is that each side is really feeling. And so, my question that I have for the audience today is really, how do we help calm division? What are the things that we actually can do to be able to help? And as you mentioned, we have all of these algorithms that are just spewing at us. We click on stuff that says, oh my gosh, you won't believe this person was humiliated. And we're drawn to it. Like we're like, ooh, what's going on there? And so it those algorithms and the division can feel really loud, and we can immediately jump on a specific bandwagon. So what is our part in this to try to lessen that? And I think one of the things we need to think about is how we contribute to that. So when we see these types of things, and I'm guilty of it, we are adding to our own algorithm. So when we're clicking on it, we're giving them the power by fueling more and more people finding it. Even if you're upset by it, you adding a comment to it just added more people seeing it.
Mhm.
So if we don't like it, the best approach is to do nothing, to move on. And so think
Yeah,
about that. Like we want to see things, we can go see it, but we have a choice in the matter. We can either comment and help that person, that negativity continue to go in the world, or we can make a choice to not say anything, not comment, not do anything, and just move on.
yeah, and also there's something that we've introduced in both in courses on relationships and communication, and even working on your emotional intelligence. If you're working on empathy, there's a great exercise. It's a Buddhist compassion exercise, and it basically is just a whole list of things of f- have that person in your head that you're having a conflict with or you're reacting to in that volatile way, and you say things like, just like me, this person has experienced loss in their life. Just like me,
Mhm.
this person wants to be connected. Just like
Love that.
me, this person wants to be their best. Just like me, this person has fears. and things that really affect their life in a negative way. Just like me, this person struggles on a daily basis with different things, just
Yeah.
like me. And you can we've got a whole like page of these things. And we do this exercise where we say, picture that person you're having a conflict with or you're reacting to, like you would react to a post, and then go through this list of things and then ask yourself, do you see that person or that situation any differently? And sometimes people say, no, I don't see it any differently at all. And that's okay. There's
Yeah.
no right or wrong answer. But I think it at least gives you the opportunity to have that compassion and empathy, even if you can't fully understand it, even if you
Hmm.
say, I could never do that, I could never be that way, but I'm at least starting to try to understand why they're that way and they reacted that way.
Yeah.
And you don't know until you know. You don't know until you get to know people, and that's what I'm saying. If all these people that are these volatile, like just horrible things online, if you got a couple of those people that were so divided in a room together and
Yeah.
started with what they have in common, find three things you have in common, my guess is a lot of that stuff would be diminished or go away completely.
Yeah.
And that's where that isolation, social media, that's where that really fuels this fire
Yeah.
like nobody's business. It's amazing how that exacerbates everything.
Yeah.
So
And I think it's also about getting connected with people that people that may even think differently, but you have a relationship with. I can tell you, our next door neighbors, we're great friends with them, but they think differently than us. We have different political views, but one of the things we're able to do is have a conversation without pointing fingers and things like that. And it does require being able to have those types of conversations. Where I think it's not helpful necessarily is when you get like these posts from like media and things like that that are trying to fuel division. My recommendation is, can we like maybe stop adding to the algorithm and embracing those, the people that are trying to, fuel division, and focus more individually and have those conversations. And one of the things that I've been toying around with is, as I've been trying to find different questions that I can ask, to lead with curiosity and not certainty. So, what led you to that view? So, lowering that defensiveness really helps us to invite and understand more about their story. And then, as you're going through, understanding and acknowledging their emotions and their values. So, how do we connect with them? I can see why that's worrying. So, whatever their viewpoint is, find a way to be able to connect with them, even if it's like 5%. You can only connect to like 5% of what
yeah,
it is that they're saying.
you may have to stop at we're both carbon-based life forms. Maybe that's the only connection you can get. And as Carrie points out, that I mean, to me, that's the hardest part. That is the most difficult part, is to try to find a way to connect with people that really trample all over what your values are. And if somebody's, if there's a basic human right being denied by somebody, to if you can get there and be curious about that and what caused that, then at least you're trying to understand instead of dismissing and dividing.
Mhm.
And is that easy? No. And do I do it all the time? No, I don't.
Yeah.
But that's what I hope to do. I believe in the power of love and the transformational power of love.
Yeah.
And if you can get there and love that person that's having those problems with not honoring basic human rights in others, and truly love them and connect with them in some way, to me that's a healing process for them, and maybe sometimes even for yourself.
Yeah. I'm going to pull up what Heather said. She said, "Ooh, that's a tough question. I feel like it's very difficult to help cool the division individually because the climate has become so adversarial." And I think that that's an important part. Like, people feel overwhelmed. They're like, how can I even approach things? And so I want to talk a little bit about that. It has been years since I've been able to have a conversation like I mentioned earlier, because when others realize that I may not think exactly the way they do, they shut me down or close off. They won't talk to me about it. How do we, so what are the tactics or things we could potentially do to open up the conversation, to even begin to have a conversation with someone? What are your thoughts there?
Hmm. Well, I mean, curiosity is the basis of that. Curiosity and empathy,
Hmm.
and then I mean, uh, if they feel like you're truly trying to connect with them, or truly curious about what they're saying, I think at least you have a chance. And sometimes
Yeah.
you don't, and sometimes you don't. And it's the it's the whole idea of that sense of connection. We are connected, whether you realize it or not. We're connected as human beings. So let's try to figure out a way that we can connect, in on some level. It doesn't have to. I don't have to be your best friend, and I don't have to agree with what you're telling me. But
Yeah.
let's try to find what we do connect with, and maybe it's just simple things like family, or celebration, or music, or something that we can agree on. And let's just let agree on that and leave it there, and maybe build on that at some date.
Yeah. I think what you said is important, that it does start with intent. Like, I want to understand and keep this respectful, even if we disagree, like maybe even starting off that way, that people see that you're genuine in wanting to really understand. And then it could be like a question like, well, what experiences have shaped, how you see this?
Hmm.
Because I think it's important, because I feel like so many times it's our past that has really impacted why it is that we see a particular way. And we may have no idea that it might be because of something that happened to us. I know that, when we think about the things that skew our mindset, it's typically because of an experience that we had, a negative
Right.
experience that makes us immediately go to one particular side. So having that
Yeah.
perspective helps.
Absolutely. And that trauma and that PTSD from that trauma, I mean, that's what the police officer had, right? He had a trauma that was frightening, and he thought he was probably going to die.
Right.
And if you know that, then at least you have, I mean, not that you agree with what he did, and it was a tragic thing. We can all agree on that, but at least you have some sense of trying to figure out what was going on with him. And that's the first step toward connection, is that understanding. And you have to really be compassionate and show your empathy, and let those guards down, and not try to challenge what your beliefs or values are. And
Yeah.
that is so hard to do. I'm telling you, it's
Yeah.
really difficult.
And I can look at potential perspective, that that's what he thought was going to happen. Now I'm making an assumption. Keep in
Sure.
mind, based on, that additional information. I also think that there's other things we need to look at as well, in the fact of how it is that we're approaching the things that we're doing. So, does it make sense? Do we expect that police officers and law enforcement will also de escalate situations? Like, is that also our expectation? I can tell you, for me, that's one of my expectations. Like, in that situation, I also felt like they escalated the situation and it was unnecessary, is my
Yeah.
perspective and what it is that I saw.
Sure.
And so, how can, so if we step back and think about this, not in this situation, but talk about our values, like that's where I think that a lot of times when we're having a nuanced conversation and not picking sides, we have to come to like, what is our value and what is it that we expect? So some people might say, well, police are there and they're there to enforce the law and whatever means necessary. And the other point that I hear is that Officers, if they've given you an order, then you need to abide by it. And I want to talk about that as well, because there are some that will say that always, you always obey authority. But to me, that's also a dangerous black and white thinking, because think about the situations where people have followed orders from authority, whether it's teachers or religious, leaders. Like, think about kids that are taught. And this is one of the things I talk to my daughter about, is I'm like, yes, you want to respect authority, but you also want to evaluate what it is that they're asking you. And if it's against your values, then we need to have a little bit of an understanding there. Like, if they're telling you to go kill someone, like, that's not really a value, and it doesn't matter that they're an authority.
Yeah, I think that's such a great point, and it becomes this whole idea of, in the end, you have to decide what's right for yourself, and what your values are. But it gets so complicated because we're such complex, entities and human beings, and the reasons for those values and the reasons for those beliefs and the reasons for those actions can be mired in such a complex thing of past trauma and how you
Yeah,
were raised, and what your parents believed, or whoever raised you believed. And it
absolutely.
gets into this, it's so complex. And then you throw in on top of that media and social media and societal issues and incidents like this that stoke it.
Yeah.
And there's no easy answers. There's no,
I,
the only easy answer for me is love and human connection. And
yeah.
again, that's what I've been preaching and speaking on and teaching for the last couple of years, and we'll continue to do that, because I think it's important that we try to gather some tools and gather some ideas on what does
Yeah.
connect us as humans, and how can we do more of that.
Let me ask you this. So I agree that love and connection is the way to go. I also know that there are particular positions like law enforcement that can't just be love and connection. So how do we help, as a society, help guide what it is that we want? For me, when we think about authority, they also need to show respect and de-escalate situations. We also
Yeah.
want authority to establish trust, where we know that we're safe to then follow orders. So I think that the love and the connection is important when it comes to authority. Yet I also think that it's in a little bit of a different way. It's done more from a, like, how do I, as a police officer, deal with the force that I might have to utilize or do a
Mhm.
part of my position, because they have very difficult positions in dealing with people that are actually violent and people that are dealing with that. So they can't always do love and connection. So, but
Right.
we have also seen really successful police officers de-escalate situations, just the way that people, when in mental institutions, there are specific people that help to de-escalate someone that is mentally ill. And I think that
Hmm.
those are, if we really want to solve some of these issues, we have to have real professionals that learned that type of approach in things instead of escalating situations. And that's where I think that we're going a little bit off, kilter in society, is that it's like, nope, we're okay with them, killing someone.
Right.
And that's where, yes, us individually, we can be compassionate, we can do love. And I also think we need to look at how we can help provide structure
Right.
to how it is that we also expect positions to also help us in society to be better.
Well, it's really tough to do those in those moments of crisis. I think it's
Mhm.
about, the best policemen are the ones that develop relationships with people on their beat or in whatever
Yes.
they're doing beforehand. And maybe it's impossible to do that with ICE, because you're rounding people
Yes.
up. But But so I don't know. There again, it's a complex issue. But I think
Yeah.
for most people in authority, if you get to know the people that you're in authority over, you have a much better chance of connecting with them on some level that would
Yeah.
de-escalate almost immediately because they trust you, you trust them. There's a mutual respect,
Yep.
and it's that whole golden rule. We use the platinum rule. Do unto others that have for what they would want. Not
Hmm.
just because what you think they want, but what do they want. But here's the thing. Um, this from the Bible, it says that the two big commandments that everything's based on is love God and then love your neighbor as yourself.
Yeah.
But I think one of the big issues with that is we don't love ourselves
Mm.
as much as we can. And I think that's more the root cause than not loving someone else. I think
Mm.
I think we're struggling, and we're struggling with our lives, and we're struggling with past trauma, and we're struggling with connection, and we're struggling with all these things. And it's I think this whole thing, if you want to get down to the really root cause, I think it comes down to self-love and compassion.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you have that for yourself, then you can do that with other people.
Yeah. There's some other comments that are coming in. I do see that Maria's here. She said, I knew I had a 9 o'clock. We'll have to replay later. So thank you for joining us, Maria. She also said, that's what I told one of my brothers today. He has PTSD from the summer incident. Being in danger and perceived danger are two different
Totally.
things.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then Lynn is joining us I think for the first time. So she said, so thank you, Kenneth, for inviting her. And she says, thank you to him for inviting her to this. And then Ken had also made a message to Lisa saying, savor the flavor of the awesomeness in you for joining us today. And I don't know who Kenya is, but it says is a badass kind of guy when provoked. And so thank you, Kenneth, for joining us today. Carrie says, the last years have really worked my empathy muscles. I'm exhausted.
Amen, sister. It's compassion fatigue. It's so real. It's
It
so real.
is. And Carrie, Heather said 100%. Chasen, welcome. He said, hello, everyone. Thank you, Kenneth. So thank you, Kenneth, for inviting people. So I appreciate that. And so we have several new individuals as well, with Melissa being here as well. So thank you guys for joining us. And so we're really talking about them versus us and some of the things that we can do. And I think, Brent, you brought up a good point in the self-love. Like, I think the recurring topic that will happen throughout the year, that's why I labeled it awakening, within, is that when we really focus on being mindful, meditation, and things like that, that we can really filter out a lot of this division and the things that we're doing to then get clarity on what it is that we really need to do to be able to be better, and help each other in society. And so I think that self-love is really important.
It is. If you're depleted and have some self-loathing, how can you connect with other people? How can you support them? How can you love them? And I believe that's a big piece of this that we're missing, and we tend to blame other people, but it starts with us, and it starts with being whole and being centered and being connected and having that self-compassion, and then that can flow out of you into other people. And that may sound real touchy-feely, but there's some science behind that as well, in terms
Mm-hmm.
of emotional connection and how we connect as humans, and our brains connect in that way. And so that's where we like to start. A lot of the programs we do is you start internally. What's going on with me, and what's preventing me from being more empathetic, and what's preventing me from connecting with other people, and that's where it starts. In
Yeah.
fact, we have the 12 steps to great relationships, and one of the first steps is compassion for yourself, right?
Mm. I love that. Well, if people were to, so that's on your website, right?
Yeah,
BrentDarnell.com.
brentdarnell.com. There, check out the I've got self-directed courses, lots of good information. And if you need anything from me, let me know. I've got lots of free stuff, free emotional intelligence test, and
Yeah,
something called a nutrition survey that measures what's going on in your body. And then we have something called the body battery inventory that measures stressors versus recovery. Those are all free, and I think they're in my online store, so you can check them out.
nice. Well, I want to also give people a little bit of tips on how it is that they might can help with like communication. So whenever we think about ways to really start to connect with people and maybe you don't see things, eye to eye with them, one of the things that I have found, and I learned this from Dr. Deb, who's the depth psychologist that I go see, and this is a sort of a quick version of this. So it's observe, feel, need, and request. I focus on, if I'm needing to have communication with someone and find a way that allows us to be able to connect, I focus on first, like what I've observed. So, when, let's say this is online and it's a friend or something like that, or something has happened and you're needing to have communication with them. One of the things that I found is when, this happened, or I've observed this happening, this particular thing, and you state some facts, something that's non-disputable, then you focus on the feel. So I feel uneasy, or I feel, however it is. And it's interesting, Brent, that I also feel like a lot of times people have a hard time identifying the feeling that they're actually feeling
Yes,
as
yes.
well. But then you get into the need, because I care about, whatever it is, and what it is that you're needing a part of something, and then you go into the request. And for her, she has what I want for you, what I want for me, and what I want for us.
Mm,
And so you go into the request and you think about it from their perspective and what it is you want for them, in what it is you understand the challenge to be. Then you focus on your value and what it is you want for yourself, and then what it is that you want collectively,
right.
the togetherness with things that helps to open up the conversation, hopefully, um,
Yeah.
to be able to connect with people.
It sounds very similar to Rosenberg's nonviolent communication model. It's so
Yes.
powerful. But the two mantras that we have for the human connection is number one, assume positive intent.
Mm-hmm.
And number two, be curious instead of judgmental.
Mm.
If you can carry those with you kind of in your subconscious, it really does de-escalate and head off a lot of problems.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh, we have a lot of individuals saying things. So I think Nick is here as well. So Nicole, she said, hi, Sarah and everyone. Happy New Year. So thanks for joining us, Nick. And so thank you, Kenneth. He like sent I think a message inviting a bunch of different people. So thank you for that. Carrie says awesome session. Thanks, Brent and Sarah too.
Thanks, Carrie.
Yeah. And then just some other individuals saying hello. So it's awesome to see everybody. And so, Britt, when I start to think upon wrapping up this particular topic, I want to talk a little bit about maybe, if we were to reevaluate sort of othering language, people, let's say that people are, just sort of used to doing them, that group, the othering, I call it othering language.
Mhm.
What two changes might we start with and why?
Hmm. Well, I think it's how you started, putting yourself in the shoes of the officer, putting yourself in the shoes. Your immediate response was that negative response or that one response, but then
Mhm.
let's think deeper and let's do I'll dig a little deeper and have some more compassion and empathy for the other side and see if we can figure that
Yes.
out. So I think that's the foundation for everything, is that
Mm.
compassion. Uh, and then especially if you violently disagree with what they just did or said, or, whatever, that's when you really have to be focused on figuring out, what am I missing here? How can I understand this person better? Even if I don't agree with them, how can I understand them better? So I think it's about,
Yeah.
I think we get into that trap of, we're going to convince them. And nobody on Facebook ever said, gosh, thanks for pointing that out. I'm totally wrong about this. You are so awesome. Nobody ever says that. So there's no convincing. So ultimately, it starts with you. It starts with internal to
Mhm.
you. And like you mentioned before, this is so powerful.
Yeah.
It's amazing how others change when you change. And you think they've changed, but they really haven't. I mean,
Mhm.
they're reacting on you. They're
Right.
responding to you. And when you shift that, they shift, and you'll see the shift. And it's so powerful to watch that. So I think ultimately it starts with you
Yeah.
internally.
It's
So
the awakening within. And that's exactly, the purpose is that, as the Buddhist monks that are doing the walk of peace, they said peace is within. Like if we
yeah,
want peace, we have to start with us first. And when we start to shift as people, we then can help others shift, but not because we're, forcing them to
yeah,
shift.
convincing,
Yeah,
or
and convincing them
yeah,
to shift. They're seeing us show up differently.
yeah.
And that's what ends up creating the shift.
I agree with that. And sometimes it's even subliminal. It's not even conscious, or
Yeah.
it's not even overt. It's some kind of energetic thing that happens when you stop that escalation and you truly try to understand. Something magic happens a
Yeah.
lot of times, sometimes not. It's a lot of it's up to the other person as well. But a lot of times this thing really, it's a powerful thing when it happens.
Yeah. I have had, I've seen it myself where I've had an individual that I'm like, I always feel like I'm arguing with this person. Like,
Mhm.
what is it? And I took a different, completely approach. I was like, you know what? I am going to approach this completely differently. And I started doing those types of things and I started showing up differently. And it took some time, but now this person is reacting differently. Like, is there
Right.
maybe still some things, there that, maybe the person feels a particular way, maybe. But I have noticed because of my shift, the person has also shifted.
It's so true. And I think we waste so much energy trying to convince or hoping they'll change, or if we could just point, if we could say it the right way, then they would see that this person's an idiot, or this situation is the way I see it.
Yeah.
And when you're talking about emotional responses and value responses, no logic will convince them. And we teach that in the communication
Yeah.
self-directed course. You cannot convince people that are reacting emotionally through logic. It never works. It will
Mhm.
never work. Don't waste your energy trying to make it work. Start with that connection piece, and then maybe there's a chance you can figure out how to move forward together.
Yeah. I love that. Keep in mind that, later on, as we continue on with different topics, we're also going to talk about boundaries, and sometimes you're just going to have to say no. And maybe there's,
Yes.
there are those things as well. But I think if we first start with this and taking this approach in how it is that we can show up differently and what it is that, how it is inner, we can, the things that we can do, whether it be for me, I've really been focusing on being more mindful and meditating in the morning time. Also, one of the things the monks talked about is that, saying, I'm going to have a peaceful day. Like every day, have
Yes.
an intent and have that this is the day that you're going to have and see be grateful for, the challenges and the things that are happening to you. See them as something that is for you, not to, against you. And so, I think that those are some of the ways that we really can start to shift the world. Is if we're wanting to do that, we have to start within.
Yeah, totally, totally true.
Yeah. So we have more people coming in. So thank you so much. So Yolanda Chin. So thank you so much. Lynn also said the same goes for the mind shift from negativity and positivity.
Yeah.
Yes.
True.
And so, well, Brent, I just love and adore having you on. And I just want to thank you for being my first guest in 2026. I just, love your perspective, and I love the things that you're also doing, not only, for the industry, but, also just being here and helping to provide further insight to our audience.
Well, thank you for having me. I love what you do, and it's my pleasure and honor to be here. And for those of you out there, if there's anything I can do to help, I got lots of good resources. A lot of them are free. Just email me. It's just brent@brentdarnell.com. Let me know what you need. And if I don't have it, I can probably find it. So let me know how I can help.
I love that. I also want to remind people of the schedule. So we're going to have one more session next week, which is on January 16th. We're going to be talking about recognizing emotional appeals in messaging, so you can dissect and understand a little bit more about communication that might be focused on manipulation, when in actuality, the purpose of it was to build trust. And to be able to recognize that, because a lot of the things that are going on within society is just being knowledgeable and understanding how it is that the messages that are out there, what it is that it's doing. And then also, again, going back to what we talked about today, being knowledgeable, but then pulling yourself away and saying, okay, well, what can I do? What can I do to control, myself and the things that I have internally? So again, Brent, thank you so much. To the audience, thank you so much. I loved everyone's interactions. Huge shout out to Kenneth. He said, I am connected with you peeps. I found your show and your guest by accident today. So glad the universe.
It wasn't an accident. There are no accidents.
The universe brought you to us, Kenneth. And thank you so much for bringing everyone else. Abba says, pleasure and honor learning from you too. Myra says, thank you, sir. Happy New Year. And so everyone, have a badass Friday and an amazing weekend. And we will see you next Friday.
Bye.